Biology seminars recorded on there. So
Oh.
Okay. So I'm just going to use this as a reference.
Okay.
So what is your title exactly here?
So my title here is Community Rehabilitation and Treatment Team Leader.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So can you give me like a really short description of...
What does that mean?
Yeah.
So basically I'm the clinical supervisor for the case management program here at NCSS that provides services to adults with severe and persistent mental illness. And ultimately our goal is to keep people living independently in the community and managing their symptoms in a way that they can live independently and successfully on their own.
Okay.
So I primarily provide supervision and supports to the case managers so they can do that direct work.
Okay. What really led to you doing this job? Is this what you've always wanted to do, or what kind of led you down this road?
Mm-hmm. After grad school, I did some fee-for-service outpatient therapy work and was promoted at that clinic in Massachusetts to a supervisory position, and I really enjoyed that. It wasn't something that I had seen myself doing prior to that. I'd always thought I wanted to do more direct service, but I really enjoyed the mix of supporting case managers and some administrative stuff as well. Mm-hmm. So that experience led me to here, applying for here, and I actually applied for a position in developmental services. Mm-hmm. And interviewed there, and ultimately they decided to hire someone internally for that, but they knew that this position was open, so they mm-hmm. referred me to the hiring supervisor at the time, and then I got this position. So it wasn't actually the immediate position that I was interested in applying, but I'm so thankful that things worked out that way because I do love my job and this program and the team that I'm on here.
Was the job that you had in Massachusetts, was that developmental service type work, not the behavioral health?
It wasn't. It was actually more behavioral health. It was providing therapy to people ages, like I think my youngest client was 4 or 5 probably, mm-hmm. up until older adults. So I had a variety of ages that I was, doing therapy with them.
Okay, so like psychotherapy type stuff?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Mostly some short-term solution-focused work, mm-hmm. some CBT, some play therapy with the kiddos, mm-hmm. And just kind of supportive conversations, exploring various coping skills for their symptoms, some bereavement counseling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where did you get your undergrad, and then where did you choose to get your graduate degree?
Mm-hmm. I did my undergraduate program at St. Michael's College, mm-hmm. and my bachelor's degree is actually in sociology. I wasn't entirely sure at that point in my life if I wanted to go the teaching route or the social work route. I knew I wanted to do one of those. So after undergrad, I did AmeriCorps for 2 years, and then I worked in some special ed schools for 2 years and decided that I wanted to go back for social work rather than teaching. And so I also wanted to live outside of Vermont, which I hadn't done prior to me being age 26 at that point. So I looked at grad schools that did not require me to take my GRE because mm-hmm. I absolutely can't stand standardized testing. So I actually found a really great program outside mm-hmm. of Philadelphia called Bryn Mawr College. So the Graduate School of Social Work there is where I attended for 2 years, and it was a wonderful program. It gave me such a strong basis for work in the field as a social worker, mm-hmm. and I didn't realize at the time that I was applying that it was such a good school with the reputation that it has. So I feel very fortunate that I went there.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you are mostly a sociology major as opposed to like a psychology major or I don't know. Do they have a social work degree, not degree, but like undergrad major? Like I know Castleton offers.
There are some programs that have the bachelor's of social work.
Yeah.
There aren't a ton, and part of me going to St. Michael's College was actually that my mom worked there, so I got free tuition, so I didn't.
Oh, that's great.
Obviously, it was kind of a no-brainer to go there and get free tuition.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
So that's why it was ultimately the sociology degree. But I think a lot of the the classes and that education was also a good basis for social work because, there's a lot of similarities.
So you think if I wanted to continue on to get a social work degree, having, like, I'm a psych major, you think that would be okay to set me up, like,
absolutely.
into that?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. There's so many similarities between the sociology, psychology, and social work. And when if you do pursue a graduate program in social work, that first year is kind of the building the foundation year, because I imagine that other folks entering that program may come from completely different backgrounds. They could be business or whatever. So it kind of levels, builds the experience so that the experience is all the same for everybody that first year.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times the second year is sort of a concentration year. Are you going to work with children and families? Or are you going to work with adults? Or are you going to work direct clinical experience? Or, like in the case of my program, it was a social service management track that I was on. So.
Yeah, somebody told me that when you're going to apply to that type of master's, you kind of, like, you can do a clinical type social work or case management, like you choose what you really want to focus on. Mm-hmm. Are there a lot of options for that? What kind of focus you want? Right.
I think that my understanding is that the options are more related to micro versus macro level of practice.
Yep.
So for example, my program you can be on the clinical track, which is for folks that want the direct service, the social service management track, so kind of more administrative and supervisory roles, such as I'm doing now, and then there's the social policy track. So the folks that want to advocate, sort of at the political level for advocate for causes or advocate for social work in general, at the political level and state and federal programs.
Yeah, I think when I've spoken to my mom a lot about what she thinks, would be the best route for me, and she's always said social work. Mm-hmm. And I think when I think of a master's in social work, I think automatically DCF, and I think that you're limited to this Department of Children and Families.
Yeah.
So I think because there's a lot of spaces where I feel like there are blanks in learning about, more about the degree and what it really means and, what doors that opens for you kind of thing. So.
Yeah. I think that, and of course I'm biased because I'm a social worker, but I think that social work opens more doors for you than, let's say, a master's in psychology or counseling would. Because with psychology and counseling, you're pretty much narrowed into doing therapy with folks. With the social work degree, you can do therapy with folks. You're just as qualified.
Right.
And in fact, there's several insurance companies that social workers can bill those same services for that psychology and counselors cannot.
Right, both Medicare and Medicaid.
Right, so it's more versatile in that way, especially with the amount of Medicare, people getting Medicare these days, and social workers being the only ones that can bill for it, licensed social workers.
Right.
So in addition to the direct therapy with folks, social workers also can do a variety of other things, like supervisory roles or involved in whatever different social service programs there are. And I think the benefit of social work is it is more comprehensive. It's also acknowledging the pieces that are outside of the self as dynamics and factors in somebody's well-being and existence. All the external stuff. There's obviously a lot of stuff internally to learn about and when you're treating somebody, but there's also so many environmental factors outside of the self that are beyond our control that impact the self. And so that's sort of, for me, the fundamental differences.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to make, because in psychology it's mostly focusing on you and how things make you feel and more about the individual rather than all of these other factors. So I think that's, I know that you mentioned the primary cares around here. They're hiring, or they have at least one social worker, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is sort of the wave of the future, is that really combining the primary care and behavioral health services together to treat the whole person so that they can get both their physical and medical needs met at the same place they get their social, emotional, mental health well-being needs met, and treating, you know, the whole person. So offering all of those services in the same place. So we do have a program called Integrated Health, and we're one of the pilots agencies, and we've actually, I think, are the farthest along in Vermont as compared to the other counties with really embedding social workers in those practices. And so after a primary care physician is done meeting with somebody and these needs have been presented to them that are outside the realm of, you know, of, you know, physical health, that they can pass them off to a social worker to say, okay, you know, you're feeling depressed. Let's do some short-term counseling for a few weeks, or let me refer you to so-and-so, or, you know, or you're stressed about money. Let's look at the financial resources in the community, you know, pieces that were missing from the primary care office before, but that people present with. I mean, those are legitimate concerns and stressors that affect people's well-being, and sometimes can make people physically sick because, you know, the connection between people's mental health and stress level impacts their medical issues, for sure.
Yeah, I would think that somebody who would be applying, like if I had, say, a master's in counseling, they wouldn't want me if I applied to a primary care, you know, type office. They would want somebody who's got that more general degree, or
a broader view of the experience of kind of the environmental. And
somebody who can bill both insurances, you know, for somebody who's very, very, you know, younger, and then someone who's, you know, older. So that's very interesting. So how many social workers work here? Like, how many people with that degree?
Not enough. The integrated health team is most of the social workers, and they're, you know, like I said, located in the primary care practices. Of the outpatient program, which is where it kind of matters the most because they're billing people's insurances.
And that's here.
That's here in this building. There's probably like 12 outpatient clinicians, and only 2 of them are social workers. They're constantly looking to hire social workers, but they're not that successful. I think there are a lot of jobs for social workers, and you know, not as often do social workers necessarily want to do, you know, therapy. But I think there's definitely some, but for some reason we've had a hard time recruiting people. So there's only 2, and they're actually both male providers, which is a barrier, because if there's a female with Medicare that feels more comfortable with a female provider, we have to refer them elsewhere, or we have to not get reimbursed for it if we do choose to provide services to them here. So that's kind of where it matters the most in the outpatient billing. So there's 2 in the outpatient program. In CRT, myself and my supervisor, Samantha Sweet, are both licensed social workers. So actually our intake person for CRT is a mental health counselor. So anytime an intake comes in and that person has Medicare insurance, I have to do it instead of her doing the assessment. Otherwise, we won't get reimbursed. So I kind of step outside my role and do that so that I can. And actually right now is a good example. The outpatient therapy program has a DBT group, which has several folks in it that have Medicare clients in it. And they borrowed me for 2 hours a week so that they can bill, so that we can bill for half of the group attendees. When I started, there were 8 Medicare clients and only 2 that weren't. So the agency wasn't getting reimbursed for 8 clients of 2 hours of therapy every week.
Right.
So it adds up, you know, not to make it about the reimbursement, but that's just an example of the benefits of, you know, having a social work degree. Is just.
Well, and I feel like that must be difficult to feel like, you know, people are like, we need you to do this, and we need you, you know, because there's not enough people that can do that.
Right. So. Yeah.
I guess I want to hear a little bit more about, like, what you do exactly. Like, what do you, because you're in charge of hiring, correct?
Yes. So basically, Suzanne, who is the licensed mental health counselor, and myself split the program. So she supervises half, and I supervise the other half. So I have half of the case managers, and I oversee the group home. And she has the other half of case managers, and she oversees the transitional living home, which is not staffed. But there's clients that live there, and there's one staff person that's there during daytime hours only. So we've kind of split the program in half. So I provide direct supervision to my half, and if one of my people leaves, I hire a new one that sort of falls under me. So she's also hiring people right now as well to replace her openings. So I spend probably about a quarter of my time supervising people, meeting with them directly, formally for 1 hour a week, or a lot of the door-to-door stuff. People come to my door, things come up throughout the day. I'm available to support people to problem solve as needed. Another quarter of my time is probably in meetings. There's the division leadership meeting, the agency leadership meeting, and that is sort of the where information gets trickled down from the executive director, new initiatives, and just general information, directions we want to go with the agency, and then just communication with the other team leaders in the behavioral health division, and making sure that we have good communication and good processes, problem solving any issues that have come up between our programs or with our staff. And so then our regular staff meeting, the staff meeting for the group home, that group of staff. So I would say meetings is another quarter of my time. Another quarter is just paperwork. What is the paperwork that I do? Is kind of, it's tracking people's paperwork, the case manager's paperwork, making sure they're up to date on their treatment plans, their assessments, their any consents and releases that our clients are need to get done. I are running reports and tracking that information to make sure everything's up to date and the charts are where they should be. And then just responding to emails and voicemails and clients calling if they have complaints or concerns or questions, rescheduling people day if they call out sick, and just, I get probably 75 emails a day.
Oh, man.
So here at work, so it's a lot of communications, and that could just be a question from somebody I supervise, or it could be here, read this 20-page thing and give me your feedback. So it's busy, but I like it. I like the mix of things.
Yeah, it sounds like there's quite a bit of elements to it. What are some of the struggles that you have with your job or supervising people? I know that not everybody handles situations how you would or how I would. So how do you deal with if you do have a client who calls you directly and says, I'm upset because of something that happened, or, what are your pet peeves about the job, and how do you deal with it?
I think some of the things I have a challenge with, well, first, if a client is calling with concerns about their case manager, I always hear their side of the story, and then I hear the case manager's side of the story, and usually there's kind of truth in both, or there was a misunderstanding. I support them both to try to work through it so they can continue to work together. Sometimes they can't, and we look at a transfer at that point if the client's not able to work through it. But I would say with supervising people, especially those that are new to the field, I wish I had more time to support them in their learning and, learning skills and trying different clinical techniques. I think we put out fires a lot. I think, between running people around to doctor's appointments and making sure they have groceries and this and that, sometimes it doesn't leave a lot of time for case managers to say, okay, let's sit down and, get in tune with our body. How are you feeling? What are you feeling? How can we build more, positive coping skills, or build a life worth living, which is really the bottom line, giving people a sense of purpose is huge. We have an employment program. I think it's underutilized. I think people really benefit, their mental health recovery really benefits from being involved, a sense of belonging, sense of purpose, and just building that in people's lives, which unfortunately, because of just the caseloads and then my lack of time to support the case managers to do that, I think that we could bring things to a different level with people's recovery if there were more time, if there were more resources. Another thing that's a huge challenge is how do I support case managers and residential staff to support clients who are not in the right place, that they should be in a nursing home, but nursing homes won't take them, and they're struggling to live independently, not because of their mental health needs, but because of their physical and medical needs, and there's mobility issues, and that really limits them with their independence and has a big toll on their mental health. But our hands are tied. We don't have a geriatric psychiatric program for them to move into, or a nursing home that's part of, the agency that we can move them into. And
maybe there should be.
I know. Maybe there should be. It's been talked about, but that obviously is a huge undertaking, and we'd have to, look at, is that a priority? I mean, it's certainly a needed resource in the community. So, so those are my biggest challenges, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many case managers do you supervise?
Mm-hmm. I supervise, I think, 8 case managers.
Okay.
Right now I do 3 intensive case managers and 5 community support case managers. Some of those case managers are also service coordinators.
Okay.
So they have a caseload, but they also have leadership over their program. So like Amanda, for example, is the intensive case management service coordinator. So she's in charge of that team. She schedules the medication runs. She's the lead on making sure that the most acute clients, treatment goals are being met and they're getting the meds they need. A lot of, working with the nurses and stuff. Jess, I oversee, and so she's kind of in charge of the group home, and then Beth I oversee. She's in charge of all the groups and the co-occurring, which is our substance use programs within CRT. So with that, in addition to sort of case management stuff, they also have other programmatic stuff that I oversee as well.
So I guess a case manager who doesn't have any of the leadership responsibilities, do they, like, how many clients, I guess you'd say, or case loads would they have?
They have a regular case manager will have 16 to 18 clients on their caseload.
Wow.
And then an intensive case manager has 6 to 8 clients on their caseload. Because those clients, the smaller caseload is because they're more acute, they're more symptomatic, they need support,
more support
2, 3, 4, 5 times a week versus once a week or every other week like the other clients do.
Okay. So what do you look for, I guess, when you're looking to hire another case manager? What, like, I guess for degree and experience wise, and I mean personal qualities, I guess, would be a big one.
Ideally, the person would have a bachelor's degree. We do hire people who have an associate's or have equivalent experience. They have a couple years already in the field doing similar work, and so we feel like the skills are transferable and that they would be able to, just as good a job and have a good understanding that somebody coming, with a bachelor's degree with an understanding in psychology or sociology or something like that. So the bachelor's degree and related work in the field, which we don't always get, but if somebody has a good attitude and they seem positive and a team player, they're coachable and flexible, we will by all means you take them in and shape them and give them the skills that they need.
Right.
I think one of the philosophies of the agency is we can teach you the skills, but we can't teach you an attitude. And so that's key. That is so key in the work that we do. We do tough work. Being positive and a team player is huge in this work. Otherwise, you're not gonna make it if you're,
Absolutely.
if you're grumpy and negative.
Right.
So so we're looking for those qualities in people.
Oh, I just blanked out. I was gonna roll off of that. So let me see. What happens when you hire somebody and you get a really good feel at first and then you realize that it doesn't fit, or where you set them isn't the right place, something's just not working? How do you deal with that?
Well, it depends. Certainly people present differently in interviews, and when it comes down to it, we've had the experience, that people are not quite where they were at or how they presented themselves. And so I feel it's a very supportive process. I feel like we help them identify professional development goals. We help identify goals from our perspective, support them to work on those. If they're not able to, there's a sort of formal and informal process of giving people feedback and really supporting them to make it work. And if it doesn't work, ultimately we do end our employment relationship with them. But our goal is to make it work. I think we're in the business of believing that people can change. And so we really want to work with our staff the best that we can. However, if somebody, again, has like a poor attitude, then we don't want to make it work. We don't want that person to be an ambassador for the agency. We don't want their negative attitude to impact our clients negatively, because ultimately our goal, is sort of the kind of like in the field of doctors and stuff, it's do no harm. So if people are, impacting clients in a negative way, then we would look at more of an immediate dismissal. But we do really support people with ongoing feedback and various supports and accommodations to make it successful.
Has there ever been a situation where you hire somebody and you feel like, okay, maybe this person would do better in children and families, or do better in a different division, and do you transfer them? What do you do when that occurs? There's been a few times. So there was one actually in the residential program, which she was hired on because she wanted to work in the field, but she wanted to work with children. She made it clear from the start. She was interested in the position because she wanted that schedule so she could complete her grad school homework overnights, do what she needs to do, and eventually move into the children's world. She was upfront about it, and we were fine with it. We were happy to have her working overnights. We knew she was doing a good job, even if it wasn't ultimately her career goals. And so then she did move. She moved on into the children's program after that. There's been a few times where people have, been hired as a case manager, and they did great in all ways except paperwork. And when you have 16 or 18 clients, all those clients have a reassessment. They all have treatment plans, sometimes more than one a year. Consents to sign, the releases to sign, medical checklist to fill out, monthly notes on each of them. It builds. That becomes a lot of paperwork. And if somebody is not able to structure themselves in a way to do their paperwork, but they are awesome in all other ways, we did one time move somebody to intensive case management. They had a smaller caseload. They could do all the same good work, but they had half as much paperwork because they had a smaller caseload. So, and she was really successful in that role. Yeah, it sounds like everyone here tries to support everyone and make the employees the best that they can be. Mm-hmm. So how do you think the culture of NCSS really influences new hires, and how do you think it influences everybody here to work well together?
Yeah, that's a really good question. My hope is that, we sort of have that our culture and the people that work here can sort of hold the bar high, and so that when new folks come in, they see the high standards and can rise to that occasion, and their learning curve is strong, so that they know where they need to be, and I think part of how we do that is assigning everybody a mentor when they come on. So they're just shadowing the first couple weeks usually, and getting to know everybody and the work that they do, and so seeing that's a high standard, I think, and also we ideally would do more, but we do have some team building that we do on occasion, which strengthens the team, which strengthens the communication and the processes that happen between them, which only makes the work more effective and better, and ultimately benefits the client. So I see that as a big cultural thing too.
Yeah, I think NCSS has a lot of barbecues and the holiday parties and all of those things, and I think it really makes an interesting, relationship among everybody, clients to the employees, from employees to other employees, and the divisions. I think that it's got a really good feel to it.
I agree.
I think for me, I didn't grow up here, but but it feels like home to me because you know, I can remember being in my mom's office on the weekends when she's catching up on work and me, like, you know, drawing pictures or playing with toys on the floor. Like I don't know, I think I really care about this place. And you know, my dad, who has gotten experience working at Howard and places like that, I hear his feedback about those places, and I just think that NCSS is so different than those, you know, like for instance, Howard serves like 3 times the amount of clients than NCSS does. And I think that can be difficult when you're, you know, a case manager there and you've got a 45, you know, I don't know, person caseload, whatever. And I think here, what I notice about the employees is that, like you said, there is a higher standard. And, you know, you kind of hold everyone to that standard. You want everyone to, you know, perform that way. And I think it's really about supporting the clients and caring about the clients and showing, you know, compassion. Because sometimes, you know, like I've learned a lot being at the group home, you know, it's so different than DS. And it's interesting, instead of, you know, because I started off working with kids and then I kind of transitioned through the years into working with, you know, more adults, but like the interactions are so different. Like when you're talking to somebody at DS, you know, like there was a woman that I worked with who had autism, and I think there was some other, you know, things going on, and the way like you talk to them is just so different. Like when I'm talking to somebody at the group home, it's very like, you know, you're not talking to them like they're a teenager or they're, you know, a kid. You're trying to respect the fact that they're an adult and they can make their own decisions. So it's definitely an adjustment in terms of that.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I really appreciate being given this opportunity, because I know that this division, it's really more like interns for master's level type stuff. So
Yep. Yeah. Well, we're glad to have you.
I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I want to touch on. That's a good one. Do you have like a set schedule? Or is it flexible? Weekends? Like, how do you?
I mean, for the most part, the expectation is that I get here kind of between 8 and 9, and then I try to leave between 4 and 5. I try to keep it to 40 hours a week, just for sort of self-care reasons. I do have an agency phone, which has my agency email that comes to it on my phone. So I do monitor my emails weekends and evenings. And I'm available because I supervise a 24/7 program. I'm also available to them as things come up, evenings and weekends. Obviously, sometimes they do, or overnights, that I'm accessible as well to them. But for the most part, one of the benefits of working here is it is sort of a family-friendly place to work. And I do have 2 girls, and they're in daycare, and they get sick, and they get, you know, they have times where they can't go in, and so the agency's really supportive on, okay, oops, I actually have to leave right now, or I can't come in today, and that's fine.
Did there used to be a daycare here?
I don't know if there was, but I know that a lot of people wish there was.
Yeah, I feel like that. I don't know.
Maybe years and years ago,
It
but
was probably
it's
very
been a
brief.
while.
A brief thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. It's definitely good. I mean, you know, what happens one day where your girl or one of your girls can't go to school? Do you just call out and say I can't come in? I mean,
yeah.
Kind of thing.
I mean, I let my supervisor and my the other leaders on the leadership team know, and then I usually, if I can, I'll take care of, you know, canceling or rescheduling with staff or meetings or whatever.
Right.
Or, you know, if there's something I can't do, then they will take care of it for me, reschedule it for me,
Right.
if I can't make it in. So,
So, I know that you mentioned you did like the psychotherapy piece before you worked here. Do you think that, I'm trying to see how I can word this. Do you think that working and like on the, no, it's not lower level, but working directly in doing the direct work has made you a better supervisor?
Absolutely.
I mean, like, do you think that, I mean, as opposed to somebody who just goes to school and gets educated in supervising?
Right.
I mean, you can supervise these people who are doing this hard work and work, you know, people are doing these overnights with directly contacting with clients. I mean, how do you think it's different for you as opposed to someone who's never done that work and directly, you know, been in contact with clients?
Absolutely. I think it is important to have done the work yourself if you're going to be supervising others in those same positions. I mean, I know what it's like to work overnights. I did that too before, you know, and I think it gives the supervisees have more respect for me. They know that I've done the work and that I'm not just sort of, you know, sitting in my office, you know, not having a clue of what it's really like, because I do know what it's really like. And even though I didn't actually work at that group home, I worked at a different group home and had to stay up all week by myself and, you know, search people's head for lice when they came back from outings and, you know, and stuff like that. And also, so I kind of have street cred in that way, you know? And also, having that direct experience, you have those sort of, you know, there's always going to be clients and situations that parallel those that you've experienced yourself. And so I sometimes have the benefit of saying, okay, I've had a very similar experience. This is something that I tried in that case, you know, or this is something that I didn't work in my case, but might work in yours. And so just having that basis is important.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you see yourself staying in this type of job for a long time, or do you, I mean, I guess, are you planning on going further than this? Like, I guess, kind of moving up a chain?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very committed to being at the agency. I've been here for 8 years, and I don't have any plans on leaving. I guess, you know, if I were to sort of move up in the career ladder here, it would be for my supervisor's position, which is... I see the benefits and the disadvantages of it, so I'm not sort of prepared in my mind to decide if I want that position or not, if it ever became available, but I'm definitely committed to staying here. And I can see myself in my same role for some time more. I mean, because I do feel like I've grown, and there's a little bit of a ladder sort of within my role, because there's some autonomy, there's some, you know, opportunities. Things are always changing. New initiatives are coming. Sometimes, you know, programmatic directions change, and so my role changes. And that's one thing I like about it, is that it's not exactly the same thing day to day. That there's different stuff comes up, and you know, and so there's some growth within my, you know, current position. So, if I wasn't doing this, I always, in the back of my mind, and maybe in the future I will do this as well, is work with older adults. I did that for one of my field placements in grad school. I really enjoyed it. So working with older adults, like at a day center, or, you know, some sort of social work position within a
I feel like there's not
home.
enough not enough people who want to do that type of work. So definitely. I think that's pretty good, actually.
Okay.
Like I said, like the parts, I'm probably, when I edit...
You're a good interviewer.
Oh, thanks.